You've got to be joking, Captain Alex Reed said, leaning back in his chair with a skepticism so thick you could practically use it as hull plating. The Valthosians, the oldest, most advanced civilization in the known galaxy, are afraid of Earth? Us? The species that still gets excited about finding shiny rocks on other planets? The Gerillian diplomat sitting across from him twitched her four-fingered hands in what Reed had come to recognize as their equivalent of an uncomfortable shrug. Her violet skin rippled slightly under the artificial lighting of the diplomatic chamber aboard the Intrepid. It is not a matter of fear, Captain Reed. The Valthosian Council has simply designated your solar system as problematic. Diplomat Zeal replied, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into smooth English. Problematic? Reed raised an eyebrow. We've been part of the Galactic Confederation for all of 15 years. In cosmic terms, we're still filling out the paperwork. Lieutenant Dmitry Volkov, Reed's second-in-command and diplomatic officer, cleared his throat. If I may, Captain, the Valthosians have existed for over 3 million years. They've seen civilizations rise and fall like seasons changing. Perhaps we should hear what Diplomat Zeal has to say. Reed gestured for Zeal to continue, though his expression made it clear he thought this was all nonsense. Humanity had fought hard for its place among the stars, overcoming everything from first contact disasters to proving their intelligence wasn't just some cosmic fluke. The idea that the most revered species in the galaxy was actively avoiding them felt like a cosmic joke. The Valthosians believe, Zeal continued, that Earth harbors entities beyond human understanding. Entities that have influenced your species' development in ways you cannot comprehend. Reed laughed, a short bark that echoed across the chamber's vaulted ceiling. So what? We've got space ghosts, cosmic boogie persons hiding under our planetary bed? Captain, Volkov warned quietly. No, Dmitri, I want to hear this. We've spent 15 years jumping through every hoop the Confederation has put in front of us. We've proven ourselves technologically capable, ethically sound, mostly. And now the eldest species in the galaxy won't even talk to us because they think we've got... what? Supernatural roommates? Zeal's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, right to left, then back again. A sign of consideration among her kind. The Valthosians do not believe in the supernatural, Captain. They are scientists and observers. If they avoid Earth, it is because they have observed something that troubles them. Something empirical. And what might that be? Reed pressed. Zeal's mandibles fluttered softly. They say that humans are never alone, even when they appear to be. Reed couldn't sleep that night. The Intrepid hummed softly around him, the background noise of life support and gravity generators forming a lullaby he'd grown accustomed to over his 15 years in space. But tonight, that comforting hum seemed to carry whispers. Ridiculous, he thought, staring at the ceiling of his quarters. I'm letting alien superstitions get to me. He reached for his datapad, pulling up the official file on the Valthosians. There wasn't much. They communicated with the Confederation primarily through intermediaries like the Gerillians. The few images available showed vaguely insectoid beings with iridescent carapaces that shifted colors depending on the angle of view. Their technology was so advanced it made even the most cutting-edge Confederation achievements look like stone tools. And they were old, ancient beyond comprehension. They had mastered interstellar travel when humans were still figuring out which end of a stick made the better club. His comm unit chimed. Reed, he answered, surprised to receive a call at ship's night. Captain, it's Volkov. I've been doing some digging on what Zeal told us. I think you should come to the science lab. Reed rubbed his face. Can it wait until morning? Sir, I really don't think it can. Something in Volkov's tone made Reed sit up straighter. I'll be there in 5. The science lab was dimly lit when Reed arrived, most of the illumination coming from holographic displays floating above the central table. Volkov stood before them, his face bathed in blue light that made him look like a ghost. This had better be good, Lieutenant, Reed said, stifling a yawn. I've been cross-referencing Confederation databases with our own historical records, Volkov said without preamble, looking for any mentions of the Valthosians' beliefs about Earth. And I found something interesting. The Valthosians have been observing Earth for a very long time, Captain. Long before we developed radio, or electricity, or even written language. Reed frowned. How is that possible? We've only known about the existence of alien life for 20 years. We've only known, Volkov emphasized. They've known about us for millennia. Volkov gestured, and one of the displays expanded to show a series of astronomical images. These are long-range scans the Valthosians took of Earth throughout our history. They've been watching us develop. Okay, so we were an anthropological curiosity. That doesn't explain why they're avoiding us now that we've joined the galactic community. Volkov hesitated. Sir, look at this scan from approximately 15,000 years ago. The image zoomed in on what appeared to be a primitive human settlement, little more than a collection of crude shelters near a river. But as Reed looked closer, he noticed strange anomalies in the image, areas of distortion that didn't match the rest of the scan. What am I looking at? Reed asked. The Valthosians call them shadow presences. According to the notes I found, they've been detecting these anomalies around humans for as long as they've been watching us. The closest translation is entities that exist adjacent to physical reality. Reed stared at the image, a chill running down his spine despite himself. Adjacent to reality? What does that even mean? I don't know exactly, but the Valthosians have been documenting these phenomena throughout human history. And according to their observations, these things have been interacting with us, influencing us. Reed crossed his arms. Influencing us how? The Valthosians believe they're responsible for our unusually rapid development as a species. Our cognitive leaps, our technological breakthroughs, our artistic inspirations. They think these shadow presences have been nudging us along. That's absurd, Reed scoffed. Humans have achieved everything through our own ingenuity and determination. Have we? Volkov brought up another image, this one from only a century ago, showing a physics laboratory. The same strange distortions were visible around a scientist working at a chalkboard. The Valthosians believe these entities find us interesting, that they're conducting some kind of long-term experiment with our species. Reed ran a hand through his hair. Even if I believed any of this, which I don't, why would it make the Valthosians avoid us? Wouldn't they want to study these shadow presences up close? That's the thing, Captain. Volkov's voice dropped lower. They're terrified of them. The Confederation Assembly Hall buzzed with the sounds of 200 different species attempting to communicate with one another. Reed stood at the observation deck, watching the proceedings with a mixture of awe and impatience. It had taken 3 weeks of diplomatic pressure to arrange this meeting, and he still wasn't sure it would yield any results. Captain Reed, a voice said behind him. He turned to find Admiral Ellis Fraser, Earth's senior representative to the Confederation, approaching with her usual brisk stride. Admiral, Reed nodded respectfully. Any word on whether the Valthosian representative will actually show up? Fraser's lined face betrayed nothing. The Valthosian ship entered orbit an hour ago. Whether their representative will deign to speak with us directly is another matter entirely. Reed frowned. With all due respect, Admiral, this is ridiculous. We're being treated like we've got some kind of cosmic contagion. Perhaps we do, Fraser replied evenly. Reed stared at her. Don't tell me you believe these stories too. Fraser met his gaze steadily. What I believe is irrelevant, Captain. What matters is that the oldest, most technologically advanced species in known space believes there's something about Earth that warrants extreme caution. I'd be a fool to dismiss that outright. Before Reed could respond, a hush fell over the assembly hall. All eyes turned toward the main entrance, where a tall, slender figure had appeared. The Valthosian representative gleamed under the hall's lights, its carapace shifting through colors like oil on water. It moved with an uncanny grace, each of its 4 limbs articulating in ways that seemed to defy conventional joint structures. Its head was dominated by compound eyes that reflected the room in fractured patterns. Well, Fraser murmured, it seems they've decided to honor us with their presence after all. Reed found himself holding his breath as the Valthosian approached the central speaking platform. This was the first time any human had seen one of their kind in person. When it spoke, its voice was surprisingly melodic, a complex arrangement of tones that the translator rendered into a soft, genderless voice. I am Nexus of Memories, the translator announced. I speak for the Valthosian continuity on this matter. The assembly hall remained utterly silent. We understand there is confusion regarding our policy toward Earth and its inhabitants. Nexus of Memories continued. It is not our intention to cause offense. It is merely our practice to exercise caution where caution is warranted. The Earth ambassador stepped forward. With respect, Nexus of Memories, humanity has fulfilled all requirements for full Confederation membership. We seek understanding of why the Valthosians alone among all species refuse direct diplomatic relations with Earth. The Valthosian's carapace rippled, colors flowing across its surface in patterns Reed couldn't begin to interpret. Your species is accompanied, Nexus of Memories said. You have never been alone. You do not walk your evolutionary path unattended. These claims of shadow presences have no scientific basis that we can detect, the ambassador replied. We respectfully request concrete evidence of these alleged entities. The Valthosian made a sound that the translator couldn't process. Something between a chime and a sigh. Your inability to perceive them does not negate their existence, Nexus of Memories said. Just as your primitive ancestors could not detect radio waves or X-rays, you lack the sensory apparatus to perceive these companions of yours. Reed leaned toward Fraser. This is getting us nowhere, he whispered. Fraser held up a hand, silencing him as Nexus of Memories continued. We have observed your world for over 50,000 of your years. We have documented these entities throughout your history. They cluster around your moments of inspiration. They gather during your conflicts. They are present in your art, your science, your religions. The Valthosian raised one limb, and a holographic display appeared above the assembly hall. It showed Earth from orbit, but overlaid with strange flowing patterns of energy that seemed to envelop the planet like a web. This is what we see when we look at your world, Nexus of Memories said. A planet embraced by awareness that exists outside conventional reality. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as species from across the galaxy stared at the image. Reed felt a strange vertigo looking at it, as though the patterns were somehow looking back at him. What do these entities want? The ambassador asked, voice slightly less steady than before. That, Nexus of Memories replied, is precisely what concerns us. I think they're full of it, Reed declared, pacing the length of the Intrepid's conference room. They've provided zero tangible evidence beyond some fancy light shows and ominous statements. Volkov sat at the table, reviewing data on his pad. The Valthosians have no history of deception, Captain. In fact, they're known for their obsessive documentation and observation. If they say they've been seeing these patterns around humans for thousands of years, I'm inclined to believe they're seeing something. Seeing something doesn't mean they're interpreting it correctly, Reed countered. Maybe it's just some kind of, I don't know, quantum field effect unique to Earth's position in space. Or a property of our biology they don't understand. That doesn't explain why they're afraid, Lieutenant Commander Yasmin Khan, the ship's science officer, interjected. She'd been unusually quiet during the briefing until now. The Valthosians have encountered countless biological oddities and quantum phenomena throughout their history. What makes this different? Reed stopped pacing. You have a theory, Commander? Khan hesitated. Not a theory exactly, more of an observation. Let's hear it. During the assembly, when Nexus of Memories was speaking, did either of you notice anything unusual about the translator's performance? Reed and Volkov exchanged glances. It seemed to function normally, Volkov said. Exactly, Khan nodded. But consider this. The Valthosians evolved completely independently from any species in our region of the galaxy. Their language is based on fundamentally different concepts than ours. By all rights, the translator should have struggled with numerous terms and concepts. Reed frowned. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that something was helping the translation process. Something was making it easier for us to understand each other. A chill silence fell over the conference room. Commander, Reed said carefully, are you saying you believe these shadow presences are real? Khan met his gaze steadily. I'm saying that throughout human history, we've experienced moments of inexplicable intuition, breakthroughs that seem to come from nowhere, connections made across impossible gaps of knowledge. She gestured to the stars visible through the viewport. How did humanity go from the first powered flight to landing on our moon in just 66 years? From discovering the structure of DNA to mapping the human genome in 50? From basic computing to quantum AI in less than a century? Human ingenuity, Reed replied automatically. Or human ingenuity with a little help, Khan countered. Not controlling us, just nudging, suggesting, connecting dots we might not otherwise connect. Reed rubbed his temples. This is veering dangerously close to mysticism, Commander. Is it? Khan pulled up a display showing the history of human technological development plotted on a curve. Our advancement doesn't follow a normal evolutionary pattern, Captain. It's exponential in ways that can't be explained by population growth or resource availability alone. Volkov leaned forward. What if the Valthosians are right? What if we have been accompanied all this time? Reed stared at the data, feeling strangely exposed, as though unseen eyes were watching him from just beyond his peripheral vision. Even if, and this is a massive if, there are some kind of entities interacting with humanity, Reed said slowly, why would the Valthosians be afraid of them? These beings, if they exist, have apparently been helping us. Unless that's not their only purpose, Volkov said quietly. Before Reed could respond, the ship's comm system activated. Captain Reed, came Admiral Fraser's voice, sounding oddly strained. Report to the Confederation Central Archives immediately. There's been a development. The Central Archives was the oldest structure in the Confederation capital. a vast complex of crystalline data storage units that contained the accumulated knowledge of 200 spacefaring civilizations. Reed had never been inside before, few humans had. Admiral Fraser was waiting for him at the entrance, along with Nexus of Memories. The Valthosian seemed even more otherworldly up close, its compound eyes reflecting Reed's own image back at him in 1,000 tiny facets. "Captain Reed," Fraser nodded curtly. "Nexus of Memories has requested your presence specifically." Reed blinked in surprise. "Me? Why?" "You question," the Valthosian said, its translator rendering the musical tones into speech. "You doubt. This is valuable." "I thank you," Reed replied uncertainly. "Follow," Nexus of Memories said, turning to glide into the archives. Reed and Fraser followed, passing through halls lined with storage units that hummed with information. Other archive workers, members of various species specially trained in data preservation, nodded respectfully as the Valthosian passed. "What exactly are we looking for?" Reed asked Fraser in a low voice. "Nexus of Memories discovered something in the deep archives," Fraser replied. "Something about Earth from before our first contact with the Confederation." They entered a smaller chamber deep within the complex. At its center stood a single crystalline pillar, glowing with a soft blue light. "This is the first archive," Nexus of Memories explained. "The oldest continuous record in the galaxy. My ancestors began it 3 million years ago." Reed stared at the pillar with newfound respect. "What does it contain? Observations? Star patterns? Planetary formations? Species developments?" The Valthosian moved closer to the pillar. "And warnings." With a gesture from one limb, the pillar's glow intensified, projecting an image into the air above them. Reed recognized it immediately, the Milky Way galaxy seen from above. 3 million years ago, my ancestors achieved interstellar observation capabilities, Nexus of Memories said. They began mapping regions of space suitable for exploration. The image zoomed in on a spiral arm, their arm of the galaxy. They found something unusual in this region. A point of light pulsed where Earth's solar system would be. A world where the membrane between realities was permeable. Reed crossed his arms. "I still don't understand what that means." "Reality is not singular, Captain Reed. It is layered. Most species exist in one layer only, perceiving just their own dimensional plane. But some entities exist across multiple layers simultaneously. The image changed to show ancient Earth, a primordial ocean under a younger sun. When life first emerged on your world, it attracted attention," Nexus of Memories continued. "Awareness from adjacent realities found your planet's unique position in the dimensional membrane. Interesting." "Are you saying these shadow presences are aliens?" Reed asked. "No, they are not like us. They are not material in the way we understand materiality. They experience time, space, and consciousness differently." The image shifted again, showing primitive hominids gathering around a fire. "When your ancestors first gained self-awareness, these entities took notice. They began experimenting." Reed watched as the image showed the strange distortions around the early humans, ripples in reality that seemed to flow and shift with purpose. "Wait," Reed said suddenly. "If your people have been watching Earth for millions of years, why didn't you contact us before we developed space travel? The Confederation has protocols for guiding developing species." Nexus of Memories' carapace rippled in what Reed was beginning to recognize as discomfort. "We tried." Fraser and Reed exchanged shocked glances. "You made contact with ancient humans?" Fraser asked. "Attempted contact," the Valthosian corrected. "Approximately 12,000 of your years ago, when your civilization was just beginning to develop agriculture." The image changed to show a Valthosian vessel, strikingly similar to their modern ships despite the passage of time, descending toward a primitive human settlement. "What happened?" Reed asked, though something in his gut told him he already knew the answer wouldn't be pleasant. "The entities reacted." Nexus of Memories' voice took on a new tone that the translator rendered as reverent fear. "They perceived our presence as interference." The image showed the Valthosian ship surrounded by swirling distortions, the same patterns they'd shown around Earth in the assembly hall, but concentrated and intensified. "The vessel was unmade." "Not destroyed, unmade, as though it had never existed at all. We lost contact instantly. No debris, no signals. It simply ceased to be, along with the 14 researchers aboard." Reed felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "And after that?" "We established a quarantine protocol for your solar system. We continued to observe, but only from a safe distance. We documented the entity's interactions with your species, how they guided your development, inspired your innovations." "If these entities are so powerful, why would they need us at all?" Fraser asked. What could they possibly want from humans? Nexus of Memories turned all of its compound eyes toward them, the facets reflecting the projected images in a dizzying kaleidoscope. We believe they are using you to build something. Reed stood alone on the observation deck of the Intrepid, staring out at the stars. The ship was in orbit around the Confederation capital world, a swirling gas giant with habitable moons that served as neutral ground for hundreds of species. Earth looked so small from here, just another point of light among billions. It was hard to imagine it could be the focus of such cosmic significance, using us to build something. The Valthosians' words echoed in his mind. According to Nexus of Memories, the shadow presences had been guiding human development towards specific technologies: quantum computing, artificial intelligence, neural interfaces. Technologies that bridge the gap between mind and machine, between the physical and the abstract. Couldn't sleep either? A voice asked. Reed turned to find Lieutenant Commander Khan stepping onto the deck. Too much on my mind, he admitted. She came to stand beside him at the viewport. I've been reviewing the data Nexus of Memories shared with us. It's compelling. You believe it? Khan considered for a moment. I believe the Valthosians believe it, and their observational records are meticulously detailed. But do you believe we've been influenced by these entities? She turned to face him. Don't you ever wonder where ideas come from, Captain? That moment of inspiration that seems to arrive from nowhere? The solution that comes to you in a dream? The intuitive leap that bridges gaps in your knowledge? Reed thought about his own experiences. Problems solved while showering, ideas that woke him from sleep, connections made while his conscious mind was occupied with something else entirely. That's just how the human mind works, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe, Khan agreed. Or maybe it's how human minds work when they're receiving subtle suggestions from elsewhere. Reed shook his head. Even if these entities exist, even if they've been helping us advance technologically, that doesn't necessarily make them malevolent. The Valthosians are afraid of them because of one incident 12,000 years ago. Maybe the entities were just protecting us. Or protecting their experiment, Khan countered. The Valthosians believe these entities are using humanity to build something, a technology that bridges realities, a doorway. Reed's comm unit chimed before he could respond. He checked the message and frowned. Admiral Fraser wants us back at the archives. Apparently Nexus of Memories has found something else. The chamber they entered this time was deeper within the archives than before. A secure section that required multiple biometric scans to access. Inside, Admiral Fraser stood with Nexus of Memories before a floating display showing what appeared to be a star chart. Captain Reed, Commander Khan. Fraser nodded grimly. Thank you for coming quickly. What's happened? Reed asked. Nexus of Memories gestured to the display. We have been analyzing recent observations of Earth in light of historical patterns. We have detected acceleration. Acceleration of what? Khan asked. Entity activity, the Valthosian replied. It has increased exponentially over the past 2 decades, corresponding with your species' development of quantum neural interface technology. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. Earth's breakthrough in quantum neural interfaces, technology that allowed direct communication between human minds and quantum computing systems, had been heralded as the dawn of a new era for humanity. The possibilities seemed endless. Instant learning, shared consciousness, mind-to-mind communication across vast distances. You think these entities are interested in our neural interface technology? He asked. Not interested, Nexus of Memories corrected. Orchestrating, guiding, ensuring its development. Fraser stepped forward. Nexus of Memories has shared concerning data about the nature of these entities. They appear to be gathering around Earth in unprecedented numbers. The display shifted to show Earth as the Valthosians perceived it, surrounded by swirling patterns of energy that were noticeably denser and more complex than in previous images. The membrane between realities is thinning, Nexus of Memories said. Your quantum neural interfaces are creating pathways between layers of existence that should remain separate. Are you suggesting we shut down the neural interface program? Fraser asked sharply. That technology has transformed our society. It's curing diseases, advancing our understanding of the universe, connecting people in ways we never thought possible. It is also opening a door, the Valthosian replied. A door through which these entities may fully enter your reality. Reed stared at the image of Earth, thinking of the millions of people now using neural interfaces in their daily lives, unaware they might be participating in some cosmic experiment. What happens if this door opens completely? He asked quietly. Nexus of Memories' carapace darkened to a deep indigo. We do not know. But we fear it would mean the end of reality as we understand it. The emergency meeting of Earth's Confederation representatives was chaotic, to say the least. Reed sat beside Admiral Fraser as she presented the Valthosians' warnings to 24 skeptical officials via holographic conference. "This is preposterous," the science minister declared. "You're asking us to restrict humanity's greatest technological achievement based on the superstitions of an alien species?" "The Valthosians are hardly superstitious," Fraser replied evenly. "They're empirical observers who have been documenting these phenomena for thousands of years." "Phenomena we can't detect," countered the Economic Affairs Director. "Convenient, isn't it? Only they can see these alleged shadow presences." "How do we know this isn't some elaborate ploy to hinder Earth's technological development? We've been advancing faster than any other species in the Confederation." Reed understood their skepticism. He'd felt the same way himself just days ago. But something had changed after seeing the Valthosian records, the meticulous documentation across millennia, the consistency of the observations, the genuine fear and nexus of memory's manner when discussing the entities. "Ministers," he spoke up, "I was skeptical too, but the Valthosians have no reason to deceive us. They've been observing Earth since before our species existed. Their records are extensive and consistent." "Even if we believe this fantasy," the defense minister said, "what exactly are you proposing? That we shut down the neural interface program? Abandon the technology that's revolutionizing everything from medicine to space exploration?" Fraser shook her head. "Not abandonment. Caution. We need to understand what we're potentially facilitating before we proceed further." The health minister laughed bitterly. "Do you have any idea how many people are alive today because of neural interface medical applications? How many previously incurable conditions can now be treated? And you want us to hit pause because some ancient aliens are seeing ghosts?" The debate continued for hours, growing increasingly heated. Reed watched as the ministers split into factions, those who took the warning seriously versus those who dismissed it entirely. In the end, they reached a predictable compromise. A commission would be formed to investigate the Valthosian claims while research continued under enhanced monitoring. As the conference ended, Fraser turned to Reed with a grim expression. "They're not going to do anything meaningful, are they?" he asked quietly. "No," she replied. "They're not. Humanity has never been good at delaying gratification for abstract future threats." Reed thought of the swirling patterns around Earth, growing denser with each passing day according to the Valthosian observations. "What now?" he asked. Fraser's eyes were hard. "Now we prepare for the possibility that the Valthosians are right." 2 weeks later, Reed found himself back aboard the Intrepid, preparing for a mission he never would have imagined possible. The ship had been retrofitted with specialized equipment designed by Valthosian scientists. Devices meant to detect disturbances in what they called the membrane between realities. Nexus of Memories itself had come aboard to oversee the installation, a fact that still stunned Reed. The ancient species was so concerned about the situation on Earth that they were breaking millennia of isolation to intervene directly. "The calibrations are complete," Khan reported, looking up from her console in the science lab, "though I still don't entirely understand how these devices function." "That makes 2 of us," Reed admitted, watching as Nexus of Memories adjusted something on the central apparatus, a crystalline structure that pulsed with strange, shifting light. "Your physics is limited," the Valthosian said, not unkindly. "You perceive 3 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal. This device operates across 11. "Of course it does," Reed muttered. Volkov entered the lab, pausing momentarily at the sight of the alien technology now integrated with the ship's systems. "Captain, we've received our final clearance from Earth Command," he reported, "though they still think this is a wild goose chase." "Let's hope they're right," Reed replied. Their mission was straightforward on paper. Orbit Earth at specific coordinates and use the Valthosian technology to measure the membrane integrity around the planet. In practice, Reed had no idea what to expect. Were they really going to see evidence of these mysterious entities? And if they did, what could they possibly do about it? "We are ready to proceed," Nexus of Memories announced, stepping back from the apparatus. Reed nodded. "Take us into position, Lieutenant Volkov. Let's see if there's anything to these ghost stories after all." The Intrepid slipped into the designated orbit path, positioned to scan the region above Earth's northern hemisphere. Through the viewport, Reed could see the blue-green planet rotating slowly below them, peaceful and seemingly ordinary. "Activating primary scanner," Khan announced, interfacing with the Valthosian equipment. The crystalline apparatus in the center of the lab began to pulse more rapidly, its light shifting through colors that seemed to include hues Reed had never seen before. Colors that made his eyes water when he tried to focus on them. "Scanner online," Khan confirmed, though her voice held a note of uncertainty. "I think. You will see now," Nexus of Memories said quietly. You will see what has always been there. A holographic display materialized above the apparatus, showing Earth as they could see it through the viewport. For a moment, nothing seemed unusual, just the familiar planet they'd left behind days ago. Then the image changed. It wasn't a dramatic transformation. There were no flashing lights or alarm sounds. Instead, the space around Earth seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Patterns began to emerge, flowing, twisting currents of something that surrounded the planet like a second atmosphere. Reed stared, transfixed. The patterns weren't random. They moved with purpose, converging and dispersing in complex arrangements that suggested intelligence. "What are we looking at?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The entities," Nexus of Memories replied. "Or rather, their interaction with your reality. Their true form exists beyond your perceptual capabilities." Reed watched as the patterns flowed across Earth's surface, concentrating around major population centers. The densest clusters appeared above regions known for technological innovation: Silicon Valley, Tokyo, Shanghai, Berlin. "They're drawn to our technology," Khan observed. "To your minds," the Valthosian corrected. "To the bridges you are building between consciousness and computation." Volkov leaned forward, squinting at the display. "They're moving, gathering." Reed saw it too. The patterns were coalescing, flowing toward a specific point on Earth's surface. "What's there?" he asked, pointing to the convergence point. Khan checked the coordinates. Geneva, the location of the Global Neural Interface Research Center. Reed felt a chill run through him. The GNIRC was the heart of Earth's Neural Interface Program, the facility where the most advanced research was being conducted, where the boundaries of the technology were being pushed further every day. "Something's happening," Volkov said urgently. The patterns above Geneva were intensifying, spinning into a vortex-like formation that pulsed with increasing frequency. "Energy readings are off the charts," Khan reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "Whatever those things are, they're generating enormous power." Nexus of Memories' carapace had darkened to a deep, alarming red. "They are opening the way." "The way to what?" Reed demanded. "To here, to physical reality." As they watched, the vortex of patterns began to narrow, focusing down to a single brilliant point of light above the research center. "We need to warn the facility," Reed said, turning to Volkov. "Get me a direct channel to GNIRC, now!" Volkov worked frantically at the communications console. "I can't establish a connection, Captain. There's some kind of interference." "Keep trying," Reed ordered, turning back to the display. The vortex had constricted further, now a needle-thin spire of light stretching from the research center toward the upper atmosphere. "What happens when they break through?" Reed asked Nexus of Memories. "We do not know," the Valthosian replied, its voice rendered with an unfamiliar tremor by the translator. "In all our observations, we have never witnessed a full manifestation." "Could it be benevolent?" Khan asked. "These entities have been helping us advance technologically for thousands of years. Maybe this is the next step in that relationship. Or maybe they've just been fattening the calf for slaughter," Volkov muttered darkly. Reed studied the pulsing light emanating from Geneva. Whatever was happening down there, it was accelerating. They needed to act, but what could they possibly do against entities that existed beyond conventional reality? "Nexus of Memories," he said, turning to the Valthosian. "Your people have been studying these entities for millennia. There must be some way to disrupt their activity." The alien was silent for a long moment, its compound eyes fixed on the display. "There is one possibility," it finally said. "The entities exist across multiple dimensional planes. Their manifestation requires a stable anchor point in physical reality. Your neural interface technology provides that anchor. So if we shut down the neural interfaces," Reed began, "you might destabilize the connection they are forming." Nexus of Memories confirmed. Reed turned to Volkov. "Keep trying the research center. If you can't get through, contact Earth Command directly. Tell them we need an emergency shutdown of all neural interface systems, starting with GNIRC." "Sir," Khan interjected, "a global shutdown would affect millions of people. Medical systems, communication networks, educational platforms, they all rely on neural interface technology now. Better a temporary disruption than whatever these entities have planned," Reed replied grimly. "Lieutenant Volkov, make that call." Volkov nodded and returned to the communications console. But before he could send the message, the ship's proximity alarms blared to life. "Multiple vessels approaching," Khan announced, checking the tactical display. "Confederation signatures. They're moving into attack position." Reed stared at the screen in disbelief. "Confederation ships? Why would they be targeting us?" "Sir, they're hailing us," Volkov reported. "On screen," Reed ordered. The holographic display shifted to show the face of a Gerillian commander, the same species as Diplomat Zeal. but wearing the distinctive insignia of the Confederation Defense Force. "Captain Reed," the Gerillian said, mandibles clicking rapidly in what Reed recognized as agitation. "You are engaged in an unauthorized deployment of restricted Valthosian technology. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Reed stepped forward. "Commander, we're conducting a sanctioned research mission with the full cooperation of the Valthosian representative. Whatever you think is happening here—" "What is happening," the Gerillian interrupted, "is that you are interfering with matters beyond your authority. The situation on Earth is being managed. Your interference is not welcome." Reed felt a cold certainty settle in his gut. "Managed by whom, Commander?" "Because from what we're seeing, something is about to break through into our reality from somewhere else. And I don't think managed is the word I'd use to describe it." The Gerillian's mandibles stilled. "You have 30 seconds to comply before we open fire." The transmission cut off abruptly. "They're powering weapons," Khan reported tensely. Reed turned to Nexus of Memories, whose carapace had paled to an almost translucent white. "What's going on? Why would the Confederation be trying to stop us?" The Valthosians' multifaceted eyes seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "Not all species share our concern regarding these entities. Some believe they can be negotiated with, utilized." "Utilized?" Reed repeated incredulously. "These things exist outside our reality, and someone thinks they can control them." "Hubris is not unique to humans, Captain Reed," Nexus of Memories replied. "The Gerillians, along with several other Confederation species, have been attempting to establish communication with the entities for centuries. They believe the activity we are witnessing is not an invasion but an invitation." "An invitation to what?" Volkov asked. "Transcendence," the Valthosian said simply. "They believe the entities will elevate those who serve them to a higher plane of existence." Reed stared at the alien, then back at the tactical display showing the Confederation ships closing in on their position. 20 seconds until they're in weapons range," Khan warned. Reed made his decision. "Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of their firing arc." "Captain?" Volkov looked up in surprise. "We're running?" "We're repositioning," Reed corrected. "Commander Khan, can you transmit our sensor data directly to Earth Command? Bypass the normal channels." Khan nodded. "I can try, but with the interference—" "Do it," Reed ordered. "They need to see what's happening, whether the Confederation wants them to or not." As the Intrepid banked sharply away from the approaching vessels, Reed turned back to the main display. The vortex above Geneva had changed. It was no longer just a spire of light. It had begun to widen, forming what looked disturbingly like a mouth opening in the fabric of reality itself. "Captain," Khan called out, her voice tight with alarm. "I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from the research center. Whatever's happening down there, it's accelerating." "The boundary thins," Nexus of Memories said, its translator rendering the words in a tone that could only be described as reverent dread. "They come." In the Global Neural Interface Research Center in Geneva, Dr. Samuel Reeves was experiencing the most extraordinary moment of his scientific career. The experimental interface he'd been developing, a system designed to link multiple human consciousnesses simultaneously with a quantum computing array, was generating results beyond his wildest expectations. "Energy levels are still climbing," his assistant reported, voice tight with excitement. "The quantum field is expanding exponentially." Reeves stared at the monitor showing the interface's effect on the quantum field surrounding their facility. It was beautiful, a swirling, pulsating pattern of energy that seemed to dance with purpose and intelligence. "Are the test subjects reporting any discomfort?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the display. "Quite the opposite," another researcher replied, checking the biometric data. "They're showing unprecedented levels of neural synchronization. Beta and gamma waves are harmonizing across all 12 subjects." In the chamber beyond the observation window, 12 volunteers sat in reclined chairs, neural interface caps on their heads. Their expressions were serene, almost rapturous. Occasionally one would smile or whisper something inaudible. "They're seeing something," Reeves murmured. "Something beyond our instruments." A warning tone sounded from one of the monitoring stations. "Doctor, we're getting some unusual readings from the upper atmosphere," a technician called out. "Some kind of energy pattern forming directly above the facility." Reeves frowned and moved to check the atmospheric monitors. What he saw made his blood run cold. A vortex of energy, remarkably similar to the patterns they were generating in the test chamber, was forming in the sky above them, growing larger and more defined by the second. "That's impossible," he breathed. "We're not generating nearly enough power to affect the atmosphere." His comm unit chimed urgently. He activated it to find the facility director's face, pale with concern. "Reeves, we're receiving some very disturbing data from a Confederation vessel in orbit," the director said without preamble. They're detecting massive anomalies centered on our facility. You need to shut down the experiment. Now. But we're just reaching the critical observation phase, Reeves protested. The neural synchronization is perfect. We're on the verge of a breakthrough in collective consciousness studies. This isn't a request, Samuel, the director snapped. Earth Command is receiving reports of some kind of incursion attempt. Something is using our facility as a focal point. Shut it down! Reeves hesitated, looking back at the test subjects. They were no longer serene. Their faces had taken on expressions of wonder and awe, eyes moving rapidly beneath closed lids as though witnessing something extraordinary. They're communicating with something, he said slowly. Something is reaching back. Samuel! The director's voice rose in alarm. Whatever they're communicating with, it's not human. Shut it down! Reeves turned to his team. Begin emergency shutdown procedures. Disconnect the test subjects one by one, starting with... He never finished the sentence. The air in the center of the laboratory suddenly rippled, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a dropped stone. Colors that had no right existing in the visible spectrum flashed through the distortion, causing several researchers to cry out in pain and cover their eyes. What's happening? Someone shouted. Reeves stared at the rippling air, transfixed. It was expanding, taking on a roughly circular shape. Through it, he could see something. Not another place exactly. More like the suggestion of someplace else. A reality that overlapped with their own but followed different rules of physics and geometry. And there were presences there. Intelligences. Watching. Waiting. Reaching. My God, Reeves whispered. They're coming through. Aboard the Intrepid, Reed watched in horror as the vortex above Geneva expanded dramatically. Now visible even to the naked eye through the viewport as a swirling distortion in Earth's atmosphere. Captain, Earth Command is responding to our transmission, Volkov reported. They're ordering an emergency shutdown of the neural interface network, starting with GNIRC. It may already be too late, Nexus of Memories said, its carapace now pulsing between colors so rapidly that it was difficult to look at directly. The threshold has been crossed. The Confederation vessels were still in pursuit, but they had stopped targeting the Intrepid directly. Instead, they had formed a perimeter around the expanding vortex, as though containing it or protecting it. Energy readings from the vortex are off the scale, Khan reported, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her posture. I'm detecting fluctuations in the local gravitational field. Space-time itself is being affected. What happens if these entities fully manifest in our reality? Reed asked, turning to Nexus of Memories. The Valthosians' response was not reassuring. In all our observations across millions of years, we have documented 17 cases of dimensional breaches similar to what you are witnessing. In each case, the affected planet's biosphere was completely transformed. Life as it existed before the breach ceased to be recognizable. Reed felt a cold determination settle over him. Earth, his home, his species, everything he had ever known, was facing an existential threat unlike anything humanity had encountered before. There has to be something we can do, he insisted. Some way to close that breach. Nexus of Memories regarded him with an unreadable alien gaze. The entities require a stable connection point, a bridge between realities. Your neural interface technology provides that bridge through the collective consciousness of your species. We're already shutting down the interfaces, Reed pointed out. The primary systems, yes, but the connection has been established. It is self-sustaining now. Then how do we break it? Reed demanded. The Valthosian hesitated, its carapace shifting to a deep blue. There is one possibility, but it would require sacrifice. Reed straightened. Tell me. The connection flows through human consciousness, specifically through the 12 test subjects at the research center who are acting as the primary conduits. If that connection were disrupted suddenly and completely, you're talking about killing them, Khan said, horror evident in her voice. No, Nexus of Memories replied. Not killing. But separating their consciousness from the neural network would create a feedback surge that might destabilize the breach. How do we do that without harming them? Reed asked. We would need to transmit a specific frequency through the neural interface system, a frequency that would temporarily disrupt the brain's ability to maintain the connection without causing permanent damage. Like an electromagnetic pulse, but specifically tuned to neural activity, Khan mused, already turning to her console. We could modify the ship's deflector array to generate the necessary frequency, but we'd need to get much closer to the research center. Reed looked at the tactical display. The Confederation ships were still maintaining their perimeter around the vortex, which continued to expand. If we approach the breach, those ships will open fire, Volkov warned. Then we'll have to be faster than they are, Reed replied grimly. Plot a course directly through their formation. Maximum impulse. Volkov hesitated only briefly before nodding. Course plotted, Captain. Reed took a deep breath. Execute! The Intrepid lurched forward as its engines pushed to full power. On the tactical display, Reed could see the Confederation vessels reacting, adjusting their positions to intercept. They're charging weapons, Khan reported tensely. Evasive pattern Delta, Reed ordered. Commander Khan, work with Nexus of Memories to configure that deflector pulse. We'll only get one shot at this. As the ship dove toward Earth, the first energy blasts from the Confederation vessels streaked past them, narrowly missing the hull. Direct hit to aft shields, Volkov called out as the ship shuddered under impact. Shields holding at 87%. Reed gripped the edge of the console, watching as they plunged toward the swirling vortex. Up close, it was even more disturbing. A wound in reality through which something vast and incomprehensible was pushing its way into their world. Deflector modifications complete, Khan announced. Ready to transmit the disruptive pulse on your command. We need to get closer, Nexus of Memories insisted. The pulse must penetrate directly to the research facility. Another blast rocked the ship. Shields at 72%, Volkov reported. 2 more Confederation vessels moving to cut us off. Reed studied the tactical display, mind racing. They wouldn't be able to break through the Confederation blockade directly, not without sustaining critical damage. Prepare to launch a shuttle, he decided abruptly. We'll use it to deliver the pulse while the Intrepid draws their fire. A shuttle won't have the deflector capacity to generate a strong enough pulse, Khan objected. No, Reed agreed, but it can carry this. He gestured to the crystalline Valthosian apparatus. Can we modify it to emit the pulse instead? Nexus of Memories' carapace lightened to a thoughtful amber. Yes. The device was designed to detect dimensional anomalies, but with adjustments, it could generate the disruptive frequency. How long? Reed asked. Minutes only, the Valthosian replied. Do it, Reed ordered. Lieutenant Volkov, continue evasive maneuvers. Keep their attention on us. As Khan and Nexus of Memories worked to modify the device, Reed moved to the viewport, staring down at the breach forming above his homeworld. Through it, he could almost perceive something. Shapes and movements that his human brain couldn't quite process. Intelligences so alien that merely glimpsing them sent shivers down his spine. Captain, Khan called, breaking his reverie. The device is ready. But there's a problem. It will need to be manually activated at close range to the breach. The shuttle's automated systems won't be precise enough. Reed nodded, having already reached the same conclusion. I'll pilot it myself. Captain, Volkov began to object. This isn't open for discussion, Lieutenant, Reed cut him off. You'll take command of the Intrepid and continue to draw their fire. He turned to Nexus of Memories. Will you come with me? I'll need your expertise to activate the device properly. The Valthosian regarded him with its multifaceted eyes. You understand the risk? If we succeed in disrupting the breach while inside its influence radius, we might not make it back, Reed finished for him. I understand. To his surprise, the alien's carapace shifted to a warm golden hue. In 3 million years of observing your species, Captain Reed, we have often been puzzled by human behavior. But moments like this, when you face extinction with courage rather than fear, these moments we understand. Reed felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. Let's go save my planet. The shuttle bay was a flurry of activity as crew members loaded the modified Valthosian device into the small craft. Reed stood by the entrance, receiving a final briefing from Commander Khan. The device is preset to the correct frequency, she explained, handing him a data pad. All you need to do is get within 1 kilometer of the research facility and activate the sequence. The pulse will transmit through the neural interface network and disrupt the connection. Reed nodded, scanning the instructions. How long will the subjects be affected? Minutes only, according to Nexus of Memories. They'll experience something like a momentary blackout, then return to normal consciousness. She hesitated, assuming the breach closes as predicted. And if it doesn't? Reed asked quietly. Khan met his gaze steadily. Then at least we tried. Reed handed the pad back to her. If this works, make sure Earth understands what happened. The neural interface technology isn't inherently dangerous. It's revolutionary. But we need safeguards against whatever this is. I will, she promised. Good luck, Captain. Reed turned to board the shuttle, finding Nexus of Memories already inside, its long limbs folded carefully to fit in the human-designed craft. Ready? Reed asked, sliding into the pilot's seat. A curious concept, the Valthosian replied. My species does not experience readiness as you understand it. We simply proceed when necessary. Well, it's necessary now, Reed said, initiating the launch sequence. Hold on. The shuttle dropped from the Intrepid's bay, immediately accelerating toward Earth. Behind them, the larger ship pulled away, drawing the attention of the Confederation vessels with a series of evasive maneuvers that showcased Volkov's piloting skills. 2 vessels breaking off to pursue us, Reed noted, checking the tactical display. But we've got a head start. Through the viewport, the breach loomed larger. A swirling maelstrom of energy and distorted spacetime that now extended from the upper atmosphere down to the ground where the research facility was located. The edges of the vortex seemed to flicker with impossible colors and shifting geometries that hurt Reed's eyes to look at directly. The entities are beginning to manifest physically, Nexus of Memories observed, manipulating controls on the modified device. The process is further along than I anticipated. Reed pushed the shuttle's engines harder, diving toward the breach. Energy blasts from the pursuing Confederation vessels flashed past them, but the smaller craft's maneuverability made it a difficult target. Why are they so determined to stop us? Reed asked, executing a sharp turn to avoid another blast. If these entities are as dangerous as you believe, why would anyone want to help them? Not all perceive danger in the unknown, the Valthosian replied. Some see opportunity, power, transcendence. The Gerillians and their allies believe the entities will elevate those who assist them to a higher plane of existence. And will they? Reed asked, glancing at his alien companion. Nexus of Memories' carapace darkened. They will change them. Whether that change is elevation or annihilation depends on one's perspective. As they approached the outer edge of the breach, Reed could feel something strange happening to the shuttle, and to himself. The laws of physics seemed to be loosening. Objects in the cabin appeared to waver slightly, as though seen through heat haze. His own thoughts felt simultaneously sharper and more diffuse, as if his consciousness was expanding beyond the confines of his skull. "What's happening to us?" he asked, his voice sounding distant and strange to his own ears. "Reality is thinning," Nexus of Memories explained, its translator rendering the musical tones with an unusual resonance. "The boundary between dimensions is becoming permeable. Your consciousness is beginning to perceive beyond its normal limitations." Reed shook his head, trying to focus on the controls. The research facility was now visible below them, a complex of sleek buildings surrounded by what appeared to be a rippling field of energy that connected to the breach above. "We're approaching optimal position," the Valthosian announced. "Preparing to activate the device." Reed brought the shuttle to a hover 1 kilometer above the facility, precisely where Khan had indicated would provide maximum effect. Outside, the air itself seemed to be folding and unfolding in impossible patterns, revealing glimpses of elsewhere. Not another place exactly, but another way of existing. And there were presences in that elsewhere. Vast, ancient intelligences that Reed could almost perceive now. Their attention fixed on the breach, on Earth, on humanity's collective consciousness reaching out to them through the neural interfaces. "They're aware of us," he said, not a question but a realization. "Yes," Nexus of Memories confirmed. "They have been aware of you for thousands of years. Guiding, watching, waiting for this moment." Reed felt a sudden pressure in his mind, not painful but insistent. A communication attempt. Images and concepts began to flow into his consciousness. Stars viewed from impossible angles. Civilizations rising and falling across millions of years. Realities layered upon realities like pages in a book. "They're showing me things," he gasped. "Do not engage," Nexus of Memories warned sharply. "Your mind cannot withstand direct communication with them. Focus on our task." With effort, Reed pulled his attention back to the shuttle, to the device now humming with energy between them. "Activate it now!" The Valthosian's limbs moved across the crystalline surfaces of the device, activating sequences Reed couldn't begin to understand. The crystal began to pulse with a deep, resonant frequency that Reed could feel in his bones, in his brain. Outside, the breach seemed to hesitate. The swirling pattern slowed, as though meeting resistance. "It's working," Reed said, hope rising in his chest. Then everything went wrong. The pursuing Confederation vessels, now directly above them, fired simultaneously. The shuttle rocked violently as the blast struck its shields, alarms blaring throughout the cabin. "Shields failing," Reed reported tensely, fighting with the controls. "We're losing stabilizers." Nexus of Memories worked frantically at the device, which had begun to flicker erratically. "The calibration is destabilizing. We must maintain position for 17 more seconds to complete the transmission." Another blast hit them, and this time Reed felt the shuttle's hull breach. Warning lights flashed across the console as atmosphere began venting into space. "We're not going to make it," he realized, watching the countdown on the device. The Valthosian looked up at him, its compound eyes reflecting the chaos around them in countless tiny facets. "Perhaps you will not, but your species might." Before Reed could respond, Nexus of Memories moved with startling speed. Its limbs wrapped around the pulsing device, cradling it against its carapace. Then, in a fluid motion that defied the creature's seemingly rigid exoskeleton, it propelled itself toward the shuttle's airlock. "What are you doing?" Reed shouted, lunging after it. The Valthosian paused at the airlock door. 3 million years ago, my ancestors began watching your world because they saw potential in your species. Potential that these entities recognized as well. Its carapace shifted to a deep, vibrant blue. Now we will see which of us was right about what that potential means. With that, it cycled the airlock and launched itself into open air, still clutching the device. Reed watched through the viewport as the ancient being plummeted toward the research facility, its carapace glittering in the strange light of the breach. The Confederation vessels fired again, targeting the falling Valthosian, but it was moving too quickly, tumbling through the distorted air surrounding the breach. Reed held his breath, counting down the seconds in his head. 3, 2, 1. A pulse of energy erupted from the device, expanding outward in a perfect sphere. When it reached the edges of the breach, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The swirling vortex convulsed, its patterns disintegrating as the pulse disrupted the connection maintaining it. Reed felt something like a psychic shockwave pass through his mind. A howl of frustration and rage from the entities as their carefully constructed doorway began to collapse. The pressure in his head built to an almost unbearable level, then vanished abruptly, leaving behind a ringing silence. The breach was closing, reality knitting itself back together with almost visible stitches. And at the center of it all, falling toward the research facility now visible through the dissipating distortion, was Nexus of Memories, its carapace still glowing with the energy of the pulse it had triggered. Reed knew he should leave. The shuttle was critically damaged, the Confederation vessels were still in pursuit, and his mission was technically complete. But he couldn't abandon the being that had just sacrificed itself to save his planet. Gritting his teeth, he pushed the failing shuttle into a dive, following the Valthosians' descent path. Dr. Samuel Reeves stared in shock as the beautiful, terrifying breach above the research center began to collapse. The test subjects, who moments ago had been in a state of rapture, now slumped in their chairs, unconscious but alive according to the biomonitors. "What's happening?" his assistant demanded, voice high with panic. "Something's disrupting the connection," Reeves realized, watching the energy readings plummet across his monitors. "The quantum field is destabilizing." Through the facility's skylights, he could see the vortex shrinking, the impossible colors and geometries fading back into normal space-time. And falling through it, a strange insectoid creature clutching what appeared to be a crystalline device. "My God," Reeves breathed. "It's a Valthosian." No human had ever seen one in person. They were the stuff of Confederation legends, the eldest and most mysterious of all known species. Yet here one was, plummeting toward his facility. "Activate the emergency cushioning fields on the roof," he shouted. "Now!" As his team scrambled to comply, Reeves ran for the exit, heart pounding. By the time he reached the roof, the cushioning fields were humming to life, a network of energy designed to absorb impacts from falling objects or personnel during experimental mishaps. The Valthosian struck the field at terminal velocity, its descent slowing dramatically as the energy field absorbed the kinetic force. It settled gently onto the roof surface, still clutching the crystal device to its carapace. Reeves approached cautiously, unsure if the alien was even alive after such a fall. Its carapace was scorched in places, and several of its limbs were bent at unnatural angles. "Can you understand me?" he asked, kneeling beside the fallen being. The Valthosian's compound eyes turned toward him, still glittering with inner light despite its injuries. When it spoke, its natural vocalizations were unintelligible, but a small translator device attached to its carapace rendered the sounds into halting English. "The breach, is it closed?" Reeves glanced up at the sky. Where the vortex had been, there was now only clear blue atmosphere, with no trace of the reality-bending phenomenon that had nearly consumed his facility. "Yes," he confirmed. "It's gone. Whatever you did, it worked." The Valthosian's carapace shifted color weakly, a pale gold that seemed to express relief. "Good. They will try again. They are patient." "Who are they?" Reeves asked. "What were those entities?" "Questions for another time," the alien replied, its translator faltering. "Your species must learn caution. The membrane between realities is thin around your world. Always has been. Why we watched you." A shadow fell over them as a damaged shuttle descended unsteadily toward the roof. It landed with a grinding of metal, its hull visibly scorched and punctured in multiple places. The hatch opened to reveal a man in what Reeves recognized as a Confederation uniform. Human, but clearly not from Earth's direct command structure. The man approached quickly, kneeling beside the Valthosian. "We need to get you medical attention," he said, voice tight with concern. The alien's limb moved slightly, touching the man's arm. "Captain Reed, you should not have returned. I don't leave allies behind." The man, Reed, replied firmly. "Dr. Reeves, I presume. We need your most advanced medical facilities immediately. And contact the Intrepid. Tell them to transmit everything we have on Valthosian physiology to your medical team." Reeves nodded, still struggling to process everything that had happened. "Of course. But who are you? What just happened here?" Reed looked up at the clear sky where the breach had been, then back at Reeves. "What happened is that humanity just got a warning, one we'd better heed if we want to survive the attention we've attracted." 3 months later, Reed stood before the United Earth Council, concluding his testimony about the events at Geneva. The chamber was silent as he finished his report, the assembled representatives absorbing the implications of what they'd heard. "And you believe these entities will attempt to breach our reality again?" the council chair finally asked. "According to the Valthosians, it's not a question of if, but when," Reed replied. "They've been watching us for millennia precisely because Earth exists at a point where the boundary between realities is naturally thin. These entities have been influencing our development throughout human history, guiding us toward creating technology that would allow them passage into our dimension. Yet you're not recommending we abandon neural interface technology," another representative observed. "No," Reed agreed. "That technology represents a genuine advancement for humanity. But we need to implement the safeguards the Valthosians have provided, systems that will prevent the technology from being used as a gateway between realities." The chair nodded thoughtfully. "And what of Nexus of Memories? Will it be returning to its people?" Reed couldn't help the small smile that touched his lips. "Actually, no. Once it recovered from its injuries, Nexus of Memories requested permission to remain on Earth as the first permanent Valthosian ambassador to humanity. It believes we've entered a critical phase in our development, one that requires direct guidance rather than distant observation." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. The Valthosians had been reclusive for millions of years, interacting with other species only through intermediaries. The idea that one would choose to live among humans was unprecedented. "And why would it make such a decision?" the chair asked. Reed considered the question carefully. "Nexus of Memories believes that humanity possesses something unique, something that even the oldest species in the galaxy finds valuable." "And what might that be, Captain?" Reed thought back to his conversations with the ancient alien during its recovery, to the insights it had shared about humanity's peculiar place in the cosmic order. "Adaptability," he answered. "Creativity. A willingness to face the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. The entities that tried to breach our reality have been influencing us for thousands of years. But they didn't create those qualities. They were drawn to them. The Valthosians believe that with proper guidance, those same qualities might allow us to do something no other species has managed." "Which is?" Reed smiled fully now. "To exist in harmony with the multiverse, rather than being consumed by it." He gestured to the chamber windows, through which Earth was visible, peaceful and blue against the blackness of space. "Our planet exists at a crossroads between realities. That makes us vulnerable, yes, but it also makes us unique. The Valthosians weren't avoiding Earth because they feared humans, but because they feared what was already here, watching us, guiding us." "And now?" one of the younger representatives asked. "Now," Reed replied, "we know we're not alone, and we never have been. But what happens next is up to us. We can continue to develop as a species, exploring the boundaries of consciousness and reality, but with an awareness of the risks and responsibilities that come with that exploration." As the council dissolved into discussion, Reed stepped away from the podium, his formal duty complete. Through a side door, he could see Nexus of Memories waiting, its carapace shimmering with patterns that Reed was slowly learning to interpret as expressions. "They seem receptive," the Valthosian observed as Reed approached. "Humans are good at adapting to new paradigms," Reed replied. "Even ones as strange as discovering we've had invisible roommates since the dawn of our species." The alien's carapace rippled in what Reed now recognized as amusement. "Your species has much to learn about the true nature of reality, Captain Reed. But you possess something rare and valuable, the capacity to face the unknown with determination, rather than despair." Reed looked back at the council, still deep in animated discussion about humanity's new place in a much stranger universe than they had previously imagined. "The oldest species in the galaxy avoids Earth," he mused. "Not because they fear humans, but because they respect what shares our world with us." He turned back to Nexus of Memories. I can think of worse reputations to have in the cosmic community. The Valthosians' carapace shifted to a deep, vibrant blue, the color of certainty, of decision made without regret. Perhaps that is why they chose your world, it said. Not because you were weak, but because you were worthy adversaries. Reed raised an eyebrow. You think these entities see us as adversaries? I think, Nexus of Memories replied, that they recognize in humanity something they have not encountered before. A species whose potential exceeds their expectations. A species that, when faced with forces beyond comprehension, responds not with worship or surrender, but with defiance. That sounds suspiciously like a compliment, Reed said with a half-smile. Observation, the Valthosian corrected. In 3 million years of watching the cosmos, my people have learned to recognize exceptional patterns. Humanity is one such pattern. As they walked together toward the exit, Reed noticed the alien's gait had changed slightly since its injury during the Geneva incident, a permanent reminder of its sacrifice. You never did tell me why you chose to stay, Reed said. The truth, not the diplomatic answer you gave the council. The Valthosian halted, its compound eyes reflecting Reed's image in countless tiny facets. For a long moment it was silent, carapace shifting through subtle hues that Reed couldn't interpret. In my culture, it finally said, we have a concept that has no direct translation in your language. The closest approximation would be witness to becoming, one who observes a critical transformation and, through that observation, becomes part of it. And that's what you're doing here? Witnessing our becoming? No, Captain Reed, Nexus of Memories replied, its translator rendering the musical tones with what almost sounded like emotion. I am witnessing my own. In a laboratory deep beneath the surface of Valthos Prime, the homeworld of the galaxy's oldest known species, a council of elders gathered around a holographic display showing Earth. The planet appeared as they had always seen it, surrounded by swirling patterns of extradimensional energy, tendrils of awareness from adjacent realities that had been drawn to the world for millions of years. But something had changed. The patterns were different now, more ordered, less predatory. Where once they had encircled the planet like hunters surrounding prey, now they seemed to flow with it, through it, as though reaching an accommodation with the life forms dwelling there. Nexus of Memories reports that the humans have implemented the safeguards. One elder noted, carapace shimmering with patterns denoting satisfaction. Their neural interface technology can no longer be used as a gateway. Yet they continue to develop it, another observed. They refuse to abandon the path that nearly led to their extinction. Of course they do, a third replied, its patterns expressing what in a human might be called amusement. They are human, caution without abandonment of curiosity. It is what makes them unique among the younger species. The eldest of the council, its carapace weathered by millions of years of observation and contemplation, moved closer to the display. For eons, we have watched the entities attempt to breach the dimensional membrane, it said, its patterns complex and thoughtful. We have witnessed them guide species toward technological development that would facilitate their crossing, only to consume those species once the breach was achieved. 17 times we have recorded this pattern, 17 worlds transformed beyond recognition. But not Earth, the first elder noted. No, the eldest agreed. Not Earth. Because humanity did something unprecedented, they fought back. With help, yes, but the will to resist was their own. The elders contemplated this in silence, their carapaces shifting through patterns of deep consideration. And the entities? One finally asked. They will try again. Undoubtedly, the eldest replied, but perhaps not as they did before. Observation suggests they are reassessing their approach. The humans surprised them, a rare occurrence for beings that exist partially outside our concept of time. And Nexus of Memories believes this justifies direct intervention after millions of years of careful non-interference? The eldest carapace rippled with patterns that expressed both uncertainty and hope, an unusual combination among their kind. Nexus of Memories believes that in humanity, we may have found something we have sought for eons, a species capable of truly understanding the multidimensional nature of existence without being consumed by that understanding. Its compound eyes reflected the image of Earth, the patterns around it still shifting and adapting. A species that might, in time, help us solve the greatest mystery of all. The origin of the entities, another elder whispered, patterns expressing reverence and dread in equal measure. Yes, the eldest confirmed. For 3 million years we have observed them influencing worlds across the galaxy. For 3 million years, we have wondered what they truly are, what they truly want. Perhaps, with humanity's unique perspective, we might finally begin to understand. The holographic display zoomed out, showing Earth's solar system, then the local stellar neighborhood, then the spiral arm of the galaxy. Everywhere, tendrils of extra-dimensional energy flowed between stars, between worlds, some bright and active, others dim and dormant. A vast web of awareness that existed alongside conventional reality, touching it at certain points, but remaining mostly separate. Except around Earth, where the boundary was thinnest, where the interaction was most dynamic, and where, for the first time in observable history, the entities had been denied their crossing. The humans have a saying, the eldest noted, its patterns expressing something like respect. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Are we considering the entities our enemies now? One of the younger elders asked, patterns betraying alarm. After eons of careful neutrality? No, the eldest replied. But perhaps we are considering humanity our friends. A novel concept for our kind, but these are novel times. The elders contemplated this profound shift in their species' approach to galactic relations, a shift catalyzed by a single human's defiance in the face of cosmic forces beyond comprehension. Humanity, the eldest said softly, its musical tones carrying through the chamber. The species that said no to gods. Captain Alex Reed stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Valiant, Earth's first ship designed with Valthosian assistance. Through the viewport, he could see the vast swirl of the Milky Way galaxy, his home, now revealing itself to be far stranger and more complex than humanity had ever imagined. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice said behind him. Reed turned to find Admiral Fraser approaching, her uniform bearing the new insignia of the Joint Confederation Earth Defense Force. Terrifying too, Reed replied honestly, knowing what's out there, what's been watching us. Fraser came to stand beside him at the viewport. The Valthosians have been watching us too, for just as long. The difference is, they decided to help us. After millions of years of just observing, Reed pointed out, something changed their minds. You did, Fraser said simply. You and Nexus of Memories. You showed them that humanity could face the truth about our place in the cosmos without breaking. That we could defy forces beyond our comprehension when necessary, but also adapt to new understandings when appropriate. Reed considered this. In the 3 months since the Geneva incident, Earth had undergone a profound transformation in its relationship with the wider galaxy. The revelation that humanity had been influenced by extra-dimensional entities throughout its history had initially caused panic, but that had gradually given way to a steely determination to understand these forces rather than fear them. The neural interface technology had been redesigned with Valthosian safeguards, preventing it from being used as a dimensional gateway, while preserving its beneficial applications. Research into the nature of reality itself had accelerated, with human scientists working alongside Valthosian observers to study the unique properties of Earth's position in the cosmic membrane. And the Confederation, initially divided over the incident, had ultimately recognized the legitimacy of Earth's actions. The faction that had sought to facilitate the entity's crossing had been censured, their leaders removed from positions of authority. A new era of cooperation between humanity and the galaxy's eldest species had begun. A partnership unprecedented in Confederation history. The Valiant launches tomorrow, Fraser noted. First mission to study the dimensional membrane properties around Alpha Centauri. The Council is unanimous in approving your command. Reed nodded, still looking out at the stars. And Nexus of Memories? Coming along as science officer and diplomatic liaison, Fraser confirmed. It specifically requested to continue working with you. A smile touched Reed's lips. 3 million years of watching from a distance, and now they can't get enough of us. We interest them, Fraser said. A species that evolved under the influence of entities from beyond conventional reality, yet developed its own distinct identity, its own defiance. We're an anomaly in their observations. Is that a good thing? Reed wondered aloud. Fraser turned away from the viewport to face him directly. Alex, in the 3 months since Geneva, I've had more conversations with Valthosian representatives than anyone else on Earth. Do you know what they find most remarkable about us? Reed raised an eyebrow in question. That despite knowing we've been manipulated by these entities for thousands of years, that our greatest achievements might have been subtly guided by forces with their own agenda, we haven't given up. We haven't surrendered to fatalism or nihilism. Instead, we've doubled down on being human, on using our creativity, our adaptability, our sheer stubborn determination to carve out our own destiny. She gestured to the ship around them, built with a fusion of human ingenuity and Valthosian knowledge. This isn't just a vessel for scientific exploration, Alex. It's a statement to the entities, to the galaxy, and to ourselves. That whatever influenced our past, our future is our own to determine. Reed felt something stir within him, a pride in his species that transcended the usual patriotism of a Confederation officer. Humanity had faced the ultimate existential revelation, that they had never truly been alone, that forces beyond comprehension had been manipulating their development for millennia, and had responded not with despair but with resolve. The galaxy's oldest species avoids Earth, he mused, recalling the title of the first report he'd read about the Valthosians' peculiar policy toward his homeworld. They say it's not just humans there. They were right, Fraser said with a small smile. But what they didn't realize, what perhaps even the entities didn't realize, is that being human means never accepting limitations imposed by others. Even limitations imposed by beings that exist beyond conventional reality. Reed turned back to the viewport, to the galaxy spread out before them. A galaxy that was revealing itself to be far more complex, more layered, more alive with awareness than humanity had ever dreamed. Well, he said, a smile spreading across his face, I suppose we'll just have to show them what else humans can do. Somewhere in the distance between stars, in the spaces where reality grew thin, ancient presences that had watched humanity since its beginning felt a new sensation. Something that, in human terms, might have been called uncertainty. For the first time in eons of manipulation and guidance, their experiment had yielded unexpected results. Humanity had been meant to open a door. Instead, they had built a wall, and then characteristically installed a window in it. Not surrendering to the unknown, but not shutting it out entirely either. Studying it, challenging it, engaging with it on their own terms. It was unprecedented. It was fascinating. It was, in a word, human. The end.